Now we are going to move to the third speaker, the last speakers, but not the least one in order. We welcome Dr. Santri Djahimo as our third speaker. As we all know, Dr. Santri is a lecturer at the English departments in Nusa Cendana University, but as well as she is the head of language laboratory in Nusa Cendana University. She is also a researcher, writer, member of Women in TESOL, and as well as presenters and keynote speakers in various national, international level conferences and seminars. Dr. Santri's expertise are include those issues on innovations, language acquisition, language teaching, early childhood education, LSA, language learning, foreign language learning, applied linguistic, and as well as on TEFL and TESOL. Without further ado, Dr. Santri, I welcome you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Linda. Is my voice clear?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, that's great. Now, I'd like to share my screen. Can I do that? Yeah, I think I'm allowed now to share my screen. Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, we've already heard from Dr. Tansil Huda, everything about online learning, especially all the theoretical issues. And then Dr. Anden has come up with the bigger issues of applied linguistic. He has elaborated things stated by Roth Elias, especially about focus on form, focus on meanings. Well, those two are my favorite ones. Anyway, I'm going to talk about teaching and learning, especially English as a foreign language in 2021. I know that this is still January, 11 months ago to complete this year, but we need to know what has been going on now, until now. So the discussion will cover the issues, challenges, expectations, reality, and I insert solutions at the end of my presentation. Hopefully it's going to be useful for all the participants here. Now, let me start with my first slide. Sorry about it, it's a little bit, okay. So what are the issues actually? The first issue is COVID-19 has changed the entire concept of education. Education has changed dramatically because of this thing called COVID-19. In education field, all schools shut all across the world. And then teaching has to be undertaken remotely and on digital platforms. So there is a distinctive rise of e-learning. Well, I guess it's 1.5 years by now. We've been dealing with e-learning. And then the second issue is we are still dealing with online learning because the situation is, well, some say it's getting worse. No better, I should say. And there are similar problems still exist to accompany that online learning. I try to divide the problems into the sides of students, teachers, and parents. Well, if you were joining the conference in November last year, I was there talking about problems faced by these three parties in online learning. But now I'm going to give you in another forms. Like from student side, their lack of devices, uh, internet access. Several months ago, if I'm not mistaken, I used to read the newspaper, the Jakarta Post, saying that in order to uh, cope up with the condition of lack of devices, schools in New York distribute gadgets, laptops and tablets to their students. Uh, but I'm sure we can't do that to all students in Indonesia. So yeah, students are still dealing with lack of devices, and schools in rural areas have to face the reality that they have no internet access at all. And we have to admit that many schools and many teachers as well, I should say, they're not ready. Like I mentioned earlier, it's been like 1.5 years since the first time we used fully online learning, but still not all teachers is ready to use all the online system. They have lack of preparation, and these will influence their teaching performance. Uh, Another problem is for students, they feel like home learning program is more stressful than regular classroom. Because for them, having friends sitting next to them or having their other friends in the classroom will make even the difficult or hard lessons become more manageable, and make them, the situation in the classroom will make them less stressful, rather than they have to, sit in front of the laptop to join the lesson fully online. It will be more stressful. Uh, Basically, they need to socialize. Yeah, I believe we all will agree with that. And so they won't only stuck alone with all the lessons and assignments. Another problem, talking about the workload. Most students cite that the workload of online classes is larger, is heavier than that of regular classes. Well, they still need adaptation even until now, because again, like uh, going through it for 1.5 years doesn't make it a familiar concept. It's still considered as a novel concept. Okay. Oh, I haven't been here yet. So when we're talking about internet access, many students live in the areas where they have bad spot. They don't have any internet connections, so they are unable to deal with online learning. Well, actually, the government has provided free data packages for students of all levels, but all the data packages are going to be useless if no internet connections, right? So in this case, I noticed that the government have tried to make additional efforts, especially for those who do not have internet connections in their areas. I recorded there have been 2 programs by the government so far. The first one is Belajar di Rumah. It's on national TV channel, TVRI. And then the second one is through Guru Berbagi platform. So those 2 programs can be accessed by students and teachers in the areas of no internet connections. Well, those are from students' sides. Now let's move on to teachers' side. The first issue from teachers is they have to make extra effort to be creative in using media for students in order for them to be more interactive and engaged. Well, they have been trying hard to teach so far, but many of them are still struggling how to make their students be more active in the teaching and learning process. And then also still from the side of teachers, there's a kind of disconnection between the way they were taught when they were in university, for example. So teachers graduated from Faculty of Teacher Training, or FKIP. They complained that, okay, when we were students of university, we never be taught about how to teach online, fully online. So in that case, they feel like there's a kind of disconnection between the way they were taught to teach, because I mentioned before, no particular subject of online teaching, right? And how the course content must be effectively delivered online. Again, from teachers, they feel like no clear guidelines and expectations for them to follow. Each teacher has come up with his or her own way of teaching online because there is no guidelines. Well, it's good that I've already jotted down here the link shared by Dr. Anden. I shared the link of the online learning training. It's very useful. Hopefully all of you has already jotted it down as well. So it can be really useful. About feedback, teachers almost never have any chances to give feedback to students because when they are teaching, they will spend much time focusing on the students, focusing on how to get the students to talk, how to get the students to be able to interact in the teaching and learning process. And when the time comes to end the class, they will not have any chance, any extra time to give feedback for students. And this is one of the issues, I guess. Teachers have, like different teachers have different platform. Different teacher has chosen different platform to teach. Some teachers like to use Zoom. Others prefer to use Google Meet, YouTube, purposely. But it's a kind of informal question and answer. When I ask several teachers about that, they say, no, they didn't do it by purpose. They did it. They chose, for example, using WhatsApp to teach because no other way. Because they didn't know what else to choose. They didn't know how to use any other platform. So I think how to deal with technology is another issue of teachers. Now, in other words, we also can say that teachers, not all teachers, I'm not trying to generalize here, but what I'm saying is not all teachers is able to access technology, is able to operate technology in terms of online teaching and learning. Now let's come to parents. Well, when teachers complain about it's difficult to be able to monitor their students in, let's say, in the Zoom room like this, we can't see their faces, but we can't monitor their motivation. It's really difficult to monitor someone's motivation by using this online room, right? But parents on the other side also complain that their children cannot be monitored by them. So can you imagine if parents at home cannot monitor their children, what about teachers? They can only see their students on the screen. How can they monitor the students' motivation, the students, what is it? The students' way of learning. So this is the problem raised by both teachers and students and parents at the same time. So parents can help their children with technology problems if their children come up with the issue of having technical problems, because not all parents can deal with technology. They have lack of understanding about technology. And then not all children there to ask their parents whenever they find difficulties in their learning process. And when we're talking about English lesson, again, not all parents know or master this lesson. Not all parents know English well. In a short way, I can say it like that. When our children are dealing with other subject, it's going to be easier for parents to deal with. They just need to read books, mathematics, geography, natural science, social science. But when it comes to English, then if they don't understand English, they never, or they're not interested in English, then yeah, that's the end of story. So they will leave their children work alone. They will leave their children deal with the lesson alone, and yeah, it's going to be, the children is going to be less control. Another complaint from parents is their children are easily distracted by online games. I believe this is especially for elementary or junior high school students. Hopefully university students are not in this group. You can see here many university students in this room. So guys, if you are one of the member of this group, easily distracted by online games, then it's better for you to start leaving it and pay more attention on the teaching and learning process. This is one interesting issue stated by parents, that it's difficult to create academic environment at home because their children, well, some of the children joining the lesson from the bedroom, some of them are sitting in the kitchen even. Well, I can't blame I can't put the blame on the students, on their children, because they might think that is the best spot to get good internet connection. We never know the reason. But well, if we are talking about ideal academic environment, then of course, we have to find the best one to support the learning, not in the bedroom, not in kitchen tables, not in the bathroom. But looking at our condition now, if students want to find a spot with good internet connection, then they can go wherever they like. I always talk to my students, well, if you have to like climb the trees to get the good spot there, then just go for it. So yeah, no other option for this one. And when you are dealing with children, if you are teachers here, you are teachers of elementary school, junior high school, senior high schools, and you have to teach your children, and notice that they can't stay engaged. They move all the time. Yeah, that's the nature of children. So that's homework, a big project for us teachers to think about how to deal with these particular students, because it's a boring thing sitting facing your laptop for 1 hour, even more, without doing anything, without moving here and there. For kids, it's suffering. So we have to start thinking about how to deal with this important issue. And let's come to the next issue, which is about how to find effective teaching method, if not our most effective teaching methods, teaching strategy, techniques, and activities. Some teachers make use of group project or individual project. It depends on the condition of their classroom, because some classrooms are big ones. Some other teachers have a small size class. So teachers have to be really careful in choosing which teaching method, strategy, technique, or even activity to match the situation and condition of their own classroom. Next is about disappointment of teaching and learning online still. Why? Because I think by mid-2020, everyone, teachers, students, they had hoped that by 2021, we all could be meet offline. We all could go to school. Teachers could directly meet their students, and students could directly meet each other. But the reality is different. By 2021, because in some parts of Indonesia, all around Indonesia, I guess, and any other countries, the situation is getting worse. So the government decided that all schools have to be online still. There's a kind of disappointment here. But still, we can't do anything about it. But we have to go through. We'll see what happens next in my next slides. Another issue is about Matthew effect in EFL classes. There's kind of Matthew effect. I remember I mentioned this in last conference, if you were there. But if you're not, then and if you think this is a new one for you, then let me explain it to you. When we come to Matthew effect, it's if you know the phrase of the rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer, then yeah, it reflects Matthew effect. The first person started to use this term is an American sociologist named Robert Merton. He started using it in 1968. So starting from sociology, then this Matthew effect moved to all other disciplines, even in EFL. Well, if you see here, I have provided the model of this is another example of how to use, how to see, or how to observe this Matthew effect in your EFL class. One of the examples is I took it from LAMP. This is about how you give feedback to your students. So this slide is about positive feedback. If you see here in the circle, positive feedback loop, and how self-confidence, students' self-confidence will boost their motivation. We see from two angles here. The first one is cultural capital. When we're talking about cultural capital, we're talking about social assets of a person. Educational, intellect, style of speech, and so on and so forth. So cultural capital will enable learners to imagine themselves as English users. So this is a good one for your students. And then the second one is social and economic capital. When we're talking about social and economic capital, we're talking about uh, economic resources, monetary resources, something like that. So social and economic capital provides opportunities to learn English outside schools. So your students are able to afford to go to English course, for example, to have any other extra classes outside school. So this is the way it goes. If you want to check, you want to look at the Matthew effect. Teachers notices clever and motivated learner and interacts with them. Well, basically, we teachers, we like to pay extra attention to students categorized as clever one, to students who are categorized as good and motivated students. So we pay extra attention on them, we interact a lot with them. And those kind of learners who get more attention from their teachers, they will be stimulated by the teacher talk and teachers' personal attention to them. And in classroom organization, in classroom arrangement, the way they sit, if they sit next to like-minded peers, so if they're good students, they sit next to the students who are good as well, well, they can practice together, they can practice from them, and or they can compete with them, compete in positive way. This makes them do well in class test. And they can develop their identity as good learner. Eventually, they will begin to use English inside and outside school. Hopefully, it's clear for you. Now, I'm trying to provide another one. This is negative one, okay? This is positive. Now, I'll try to compare with a negative feedback loop. So if you give negative feedback, then it will decline confidence, demotivate the students. Lack of cultural capital. I've already talked about cultural capital here. So lack of cultural capital will prevent learners from identifying with language and its users. And having lack of social and economic capital will deny opportunities to learn English outside school. So they won't have any chance to learn English outside schools. Now, if we can see here, so anti-clock, we'll go anti-clock. Starting from learner cannot understand teacher's talk. They find materials alien. They find if they can't understand anything, their teacher, if they can't understand whatever their teachers are talking, then they will find the materials alien. And then teacher identified those learners as slow. And teachers will treat them as such because teachers think that, okay, these are slow students and well, the treatment will be like that. Those kind of students, if they sit next to like-minded peers, so if slow students or if not so good students, I won't say stupid because it's not really properly used here. If slow students or not so good students sit together with their peers, like-minded peers, then they can easily be distracted in class. And they start making frequent mistakes and feels ashamed because they do badly in test. And then they will think that they are poor learner. They develop the identity as poor learner. Eventually, they won't use English because they see it as a difficult subject. Once your students see English as a difficult subject, then it's going to be difficult for them to improve themselves. It's going to be difficult for them to be able to like that subject. If they don't like the subject, then they can't interact, then it will be difficult for them to engage in the lesson. Okay, so that's about Matthew effect. I won't spend much time on this. This is just one issue that I found. Now let me continue. Another issues. It's lack of participation in virtual classroom. Yes, I believe all teachers, lecturers, if you're here, then you will nod your head and you will say yes. I experienced that. That students, most students have no, just don't want to talk, just don't want to ask questions, just don't want to give opinions and ideas in virtual classroom. And you will find your classroom without any interruption. You will teach and feel like, okay, 1.5 hours, it seems like I'm the one who's talking alone. That's because you are in the classroom without any interruption at all. When online teaching and learning can be intimidating for some people. In an online classroom, our teaching style can get lost in translation. So this is also one of the issue that still exists in 2021. It's been going on like since 2020, since the first time we were familiar with the word COVID-19, but I think it's still here now. Like self-discipline of students, yeah, parents also complain about this, not only teachers. And I think students will feel that way too, that most of them lack of self-discipline. There's a kind of distraction during online classes. I mentioned before, online games, and less time for teachers to give feedback, too much parents' involvement. Well, it's a little bit contradictory with what I mentioned before, that if students' parents do not know English well, then these students won't even ask their parents. They will solve the problems by themselves. If they don't know, then they just let it go. But some parents have too much involvement on the teaching and learning. Even they do the task for their children. They don't teach them what to do. They don't tell them the way out, the way to do things, but they themselves will, it's a kind of hands-on thing. They themselves will do that for their children or on behalf of their children. Now, what do we expect? What does everyone expect? But in 2021, all of us expected to go back to school in 2021. So when we were in 2020, during our online classes, all of us hoped that we could go back to school, to real school, the physical building in 2021. And then there would be more effective teaching and learning and physical interaction. Once we went back to school, we would have physical interaction with other peers and teachers. And by doing this, students would have more self-discipline and a lot of exposure. When we're talking about exposure, it refers to the contact that the learner has with the language that they are trying to learn. But we can do that in online learning, but not enough space for having lots of exposure in teaching language. Here comes the reality. Teachers have no control of their students still. Well, one or two teachers, maybe they can do that, but most teachers say that they can't control their students, or they have no control over students through online. Teacher talking time versus student talking time. In offline class, we can have a 50-50 teacher talking time versus student talking time, or even 70-30. But during online class, teacher talking time is just like 99.90%, and the rest 0.01% belongs to student talking time. It's very difficult for teachers to encourage the students to talk, to make the students participate in the talking. Teaching and learning online is time consuming, yes. And again, no time for feedback. I try to put it here again because it is still the reality. Students' reaction cannot be clearly seen because we can't monitor them. Most of them turn on the camera. Yes, I do understand the reason, because once they turn on the camera, then the audio is going to go off, or they can't hear anything, or they're going to be disconnected, and so on and so forth. So most of the students will turn off the camera, and so the reaction cannot be clearly seen. And when we are teaching language, because it's just like we're teaching skills. So if we can't see the students' reactions, then it's a kind of something's missing from the part of teacher. And similar problems still exist. Students still have to struggle with connectivity. And about teachers' instruction, most of the instruction cannot be understood by students. So they will miss parts, even important parts of teachers' instruction. So they can't do whatever is expected by the teachers. I've put several solutions here. The first one is one clear aim. When we are having all offline class, teachers tended to have more than one objective. In the lesson plans, it's stated like by the end of this class, students are expected to be able to use the language in the real life. Second one, students are expected to be able to do this, and this. So it's just like having several objectives through one meeting only. But I suggest teacher to only have one clear aim in online class, because trust me, you can't achieve more than one aims during the online class. But by having one clear aim, and you keep the lesson simple by using several familiar activities, I think whatever you want to achieve will be achieved. For example, through one meeting, your aim is, okay, by the end of this meeting, I'd like my students to be able to use simple present tense. By the end of this meeting, I'd like the students to be able to differentiate between the use of simple past tense and past perfect tense. I think it sounds better rather than having many aims, but you cannot achieve even one. And you have to check and double check students' understanding. Use first language, students' first language. Use Bahasa Indonesia in this case, if you have to. It's better rather than you keep on talking, you keep on giving instruction in English, but eventually your students won't understand a thing. So you can use English in giving instruction, but try to, or make sure that your students can understand the instruction by using the first language. And put the instruction in written form is even better. You might want to think about involving students and keep them engaged in the teaching and learning process. If you keep on talking by yourself, then you never know that your students are sleeping out there. You never know if your students just, they go away and leave the laptop alone. So you have to always involve them and keep them engaged. Give them certain questions. And so they are aware that you're watching. They won't go anywhere. They will pay attention to whatever you are talking about because they know that you're watching them. If you are using Zoom, then it might be better to use breakout rooms because some students are not comfortable being in the big group. So if you can put them in breakout rooms, having small group might help them to talk, to interact with each other. But I think the problem is about the network. Once we have breakout rooms, if the network and connections doesn't support, then boom, it's not working. Grab students' attention by using many interesting activities, games, songs. Well, you can entertain your students in a way, at least for them to still pay attention to whatever you're teaching. Games, songs, pictures, or whatever you think is interesting. And the last one is standing on the shoulder of giants to make progress. I think not everyone comes across to this quote, standing on the shoulder of giants. It's a wonderful quote that goes, if I've seen further than others, it's by standing up on the shoulders of giants. So teachers, you have to stand on experts, seniors, researchers' shoulders. Like, well, in this case, I keep the ball rolling from Dr. Anden when he was talking about researching, teaching and researching, how a researcher and teachers should work together. So teachers, you can't work alone. If you're having troubles, if you're having problems, and I believe you are now, because you have to deal with teaching online all the time, and you don't have any ideas what to do, then you have to stand on the shoulders of experts, seniors, researchers. Okay? And at the same time, teachers have also they have to prepare their own shoulders to be stood on by the students, to be able for them to see further. So that's the meaning of my last solution, which is about standing on the shoulder of giants to make progress. Okay, let me come to my conclusion. The first one, many people complain, teachers, students, practitioners, parents. They complain about online teaching and learning with all the problems I mentioned before, even more. So if we want to list down the problems, then 24 hours won't be enough. But you have to remember that nothing good can be gained from compliance. So let's start finding the right solution of our problems to be able to motivate our learners and to be able to make yourself as teachers be motivated. By doing that, you will make things better in this gloomy. I mentioned the words gloomy in my welcome remarks just now. Virtual learning may have its limitation indeed, and thousands of problems. However, the art of teaching and learning can only be achieved, can only be shaped if all of us, teachers, students, parents, practitioners, and all parties concerned do it with heart. Okay, so stop complaining, start thinking about the good things, how to make things better. And I ended up by giving my closing remarks, even before Ms. Linda asked me to do that. I've already done that here, Ms. Linda. So the question is not, many people have started questioning about how can EFL teachers help their students learn online? Many questions from many writers, many researchers, many experts. For me, I don't like to have that one as the questions. I'd like to put the questions in this form. How can EFL teachers help each other to be successful in teaching online? So if you can help each other and you can be successful, then the answer to the first question automatically can be answered. It's easy for you to be able to help your students because you've already helped each other in the first hand. And the very last one for me is, if I have seen further than others, it's by standing up on the shoulders of giants. So this wonderful quote is from Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, so, sorry, something's wrong. If teachers can use others' previous great work or others' experience, then it's gonna help us all to cope up with this challenging situation. So start thinking of standing on the shoulders of giants. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Santri. Excellent presentation as well. We have already a couple of questions in the chat room, so we'll read them one by one, but I'm checking with you now. Am I audible well to you or not?
Sure, I can hear you well.
Okay, the first question from Umu Faida. As teachers of elementary school, how can online learning improve children's skills? As we know that children should be accompanied by their parents while doing online learning, but in reality, there are some parents who cannot accompany their children. And also quoting Dr. Tansil's previous presentations, it says that we cannot be sure that children can finish their assignment by themselves. So in these issues, what suggestions that you can provide?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Linda. The hardest part of teaching online is to teach children. And yeah, parents' guidance is essentially needed, but some parents are busy. Well, I don't want to judge that they ignore their children's their children's learning process. I'm going to say that they might be too busy to be able to spend time with their children in learning. So in this case, teacher has to be the one who can direct the students in learning. When I'm saying direct, I mean you are holding the key to open the door to these kids' understanding. You can use many ways. Well, it depends on the availability of the devices, of the, the application you use. You can use recorded video. I noticed that several elementary school teachers use recorded video to their children. Or you can also use Zoom room like this and providing them with interesting media. You can use pictures, you can use games. The point is to make them understand of what you are trying to teach. So the materials that, well, actually you're going to, you're going to explain the kind of material. But since they are kids, you might want to put that kind of material in the forms of any other entertaining media. You can put in the form of songs. It's going to be great. So based on the songs, that you can create several tasks for your children to do. It might be interesting. So many ways to do. But again, if you would want to stand on the shoulders of a giant, if you want to share with your other friends, if you can use others' opinions, others' findings, for example, based on the research, it's going to be easier for you. I think that's all from me, Ms. Linda.
Okay, thank you very much. The second question from Race De Sao. Sorry if I mistakenly pronounce your name. What do you think about the future outcomes of education system in Indonesia if we are still continue to study online?
Okay, good questions. Well, I don't know. I think different person has different way of answering your questions because, well, we can't predict the future, right? But we can use our logic to think about it. And my personal opinion, it's my personal opinion. I won't base my answer on any others ideas or theories and all. It's my personal opinion, my personal prediction. Well, it's not really scientific if I use the word prediction, but well, that's okay. If it's going to be like this for, let's say, 1 or 2 years from now, hopefully not, knock on wood. But if it's going on for like 2 or 3 years from now, then I don't think our students are going to learn 100% from their teachers. I'm talking about this subject, English subject. English is foreign language. I'm not talking about any other subjects. Before, now, let's say now they are only getting like 50% of what we are teaching. And I don't know if it's going on like this. Maybe it's going to even decrease to 40 or 30%. Hopefully not, but it's in my prediction based on my observation of my own students. Like the longer, not the better. The longer they will feel like they are not really motivated in joining the lesson. The reason might be because I told you before, everyone expected to be able to come offline in this year, and suddenly everything changed. So that makes everyone demotivate to join the lesson. Hopefully it's my prediction is wrong. And within 1 or 2 months, everyone starts motivating themselves again. But yeah, to me, the motivation, the achievement, and all the stuff dealing with students' outcome will decrease if it's going on like this, like 2 or 3 years from now. Again, hopefully not. And again, it's my prediction. Back to you, Miss Linda.
Okay, thank you. Because you have mentioned, you touched the issue of students' demotivation in learning online. There are a couple of questions from the participants asking the same issue, raise the same concern. In fact, they feel like students also feel intimidated and also stressful during online teaching and learning process. So the question is, what do you think the best strategy or methods that teacher needs to use or to apply to make the learning process more interesting and also to engage students to have a good interaction between teacher and students during the online class?
Okay, I think I've mentioned this before. If you are familiar, so we can entertain our students while we're teaching. We can use many interesting media to catch their attention. We can personalize, if you want them to interact, then you can personalize by calling their names they're going to feel like, you know, oh, okay, this teacher is paying more attention to me. That I showed you, dealing with Matthew effect. So if you give positive feedback, then they're going to be in a very positive mood. And hopefully the result is going to be positive. So use anything that, according to you, your students will be happy if you teach them by using that kind of media or strategy or any other activities, whatever it is. Happy, and they're going to be able to participate, to actively participate in your classroom, then use it. That's from me, Belinda.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Santri. This is going to be the last question for you. From Pak Semyun, interesting topic. But he wants to know how the government anticipates mainly in schools of those in isolated areas.
Sorry, Belinda, I couldn't hear you well. So would you please repeat that question again?
The question from Pak Semyun, he wants to know how the government needs to anticipate to retain the good process of teaching, especially in schools in isolated areas.
Well, from what I know, from what I heard through news, of course, from what I've read through the newspaper, the government is now still making efforts to support educational sectors, especially for those for students and teachers in rural areas. Several platforms have been designed to be used offline. Bagi platform, it can be used offline by teachers in rural areas. I don't know, I myself haven't experienced using that kind of stuff. I just read it. I think I need to try it one day. And then the other one is TVRI. So, well, the only thing that they have to do is just watch TV, and the program is Belajar di Rumah, or Learn from Home. And so far, those are the programs I can mention it to you. But I believe the government won't stop here. They're still trying hard to create more and more platform, more and more programs for online learning, online teaching, especially for those from urban areas. Belinda?
Thank you very much, Dr. Santri.